With one exit interview, Napheesa Collier may have irrevocably changed the WNBA. Will it be for the better, for the worse? I guess that is up to the eye of the beholder, but we will get into that and so much more on today's episode of Tempestagi Talk.
You have three people who are selfless like that, three people who are dangerously disciplined like that, and you have a coach that also embodies all of those characteristics. You can expect good basketball.
I love interacting with the fans. I'm excited for them to cheer for us because it's hell when you come here. I even welcome people that could be skeptical because it's new.
There's going to be a standard of excellence and discipline in everything that we do.
The Pacific Northwest, this area, how passionate they are. It's culture everywhere, but it's great culture here. That's what I want to be a part of, to compete for a championship. That's everybody's goal. And I think it's just how we go about things and habits that we create. I want to be around winners that'll help us get closer to that.
And that's what the fans can expect. And we're going to have some fun.
A lot has happening and a storm is certainly brewing. No, not the Seattle storm that has been eliminated since the end of round one, and are on the hunt for a new head coach alongside the New York Liberty. But the league, according to some people, we're already hearing that Cathy Engelbert might already have plans to exit, but we'll get into that. Of course, the Minnesota Lynx were eliminated by a scrappy Phoenix Mercury team who will take on the Las Vegas Aces after the Aces were taken to overtime by the Indiana Fever. But ultimately were able to beat a team that once again had a superstar in Kelsey Mitchell go down. But even that, and there's a USA Network deal that was announced, 50
the
games.
Same.
Like, there's so much that has happened.
Much.
Again, I don't even know where to get started because all of that pales in comparison to Napheesa Collier's exit interview, where roughly the first 40 minutes of her time were dedicated to a pre-written speech where she laid out a lot, including that in conversations that she had with now Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, during Unrivaled, that Cathy Engelbert made some very disparaging comments, according to Napheesa Collier.
Yep.
Now, we can get into some of those things that she said first. We also, of course, since the last time we recorded, I didn't even talk about Cheryl Reeve going absolutely bonkers. That was the biggest story until, 24 hours ago? But they kind of seem to be all related, Huerta. So when we think of the last 3 days in WNBA news cycle, what stands out to you the most? And we're going to bring Brian here in shortly, but let's hear from you first, Huerta.
I mean, nothing stands out more than Napheesa Collier just completely dropping the mic, just setting the WNBA, the commissioner's office on fire with that statement in her exit interview. That was one of the bravest things I've ever seen in women's sports, because a general comment has been that, oh, that's not a surprise. We all knew that. Yes, it's one thing when we know when we know, but it's another thing when someone who is inside, someone who has a lot of credibility, and we're talking about a player herself, comes out and exposes things that she saw being said to herself directly. So of course the Napheesa Collier expose was the thing that stood out the most. We also have to talk about about the Dallas Wings coach.
Well, let's not, honestly, we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's stick with Napheesa because we really need to break this down. There's a lot of news and Brian is joining us as well. But I mean, Brian, your first reactions also to Napheesa Collier, in part, her statements talked about the WNBA lacking or excuse me, the league lacking accountability from the front office. She talked about, we have some of the best players in the world, we have the best fans in the world, but right now we have the worst leadership in the world, Brian.
Yeah, I was so fascinated and amazed on so many levels. Like the first thought I had was that for union and labor leadership, like that's textbook. Like everything that Fee did was just like that's exactly, if you could sort of like draw it up in a lab, that's how you do it. Just clear, direct language, no equivocating, no wishy-washiness, just clear, direct. This person is causing trouble for the workforce. This person here is creating trouble for my colleagues, and this is what I want to have done. And the sort of like clarity in which she spoke was really amazing as well too, because we found out today that she has 3 torn tendons in her ankle, and she tore a muscle in her shin. So that the ending of her season from August on has been really frustrating, and I feel like it really sort of compounded all of the frustration she's had as far as the injury luck and physicality that she talked about, and also just the league dragging their feet, honestly, in the CBA negotiations. So every player that's sort of been in CBA meetings, they've come out and said it's taking a lot longer than we thought. The league is dragging their feet. They're not moving with the haste that we need to. And we hear it again from Fee. We heard it again later from Chelsea Gray in the evening time. So I think it really sort of like tied so many threads together that we've been talking about on the show, in the newsletter, and in various platforms as far as CBA negotiations go. And another thought I had too, Erica, we talked about it maybe like a month or so ago. The W players, they're fighting 2 people in this CBA negotiation. They're fighting Kathy and the league office on one side, and then directly above them is Adam Silver and the NBA league office.
Well, and I was about to say, they're all on the same side. It's like, what is that scene in Erin Brockovich, right? Where the Erin and the lawyer she's working with are on one side of the table, and then there's multiple people on the other side of the table representing the corporation for just like a friendly chat. That's always been a part of it, because the WNBA is a part of NBA Enterprises, period, point blank. And the NBA, through its ownership from NBA owners and its ownership stake over 60% from what we gather of the WNBA, the NBA is a huge player when it comes to this, which is so interesting. And I'm glad, actually, Brian, that you brought that up, because I've heard it said a few different ways that, like you said, this very, very intentional, very calculated, while also being very passionate, statement that Napheesa Collier made, people saying, well, why would you do that? It's too political. And I'm like, it's a negotiation. And she kind of, I don't even know if you want to say she put the cherry on top. She like just absolutely opened up the conversation with specific details that I feel like the other players had been alluding to, the league not respecting us, the league not, Asia Wilson has said, the league, something akin to, the league doesn't, it came across as the league doesn't believe we know business. Gabby Williams has said that before. And now Napheesa Collier has attached quotes to some of what we've been hearing players saying for months.
Yes. And people are like, oh, it's, you have to be a little more, just blow things up. Here's the thing. Up until now, players have been very political about it, and they have been really respectful of the league. It hasn't worked. So something a little more drastic has to happen. And it also, as you were talking, Erika, it reminded me of when Nako Gumake also mentioned, I think, to the New York Post, that Kathy Engelbert herself told her that players don't understand the business of it. And there is a pattern there of the league undermining players' intelligence, undermining their ability to read the numbers, Napheesa Collier and Brianna Stewart have a whole league. Gabby Williams was very outspoken after the CBA meeting in Indianapolis, that the idea that they were giving, there was a lot of like fluff in what they were saying. It's almost as if they were patronizing the players. So that has always been how the league has operated. And now we have a player, not just any player. That's also important. It's not just any player. It's Napheesa Collier, one of the most reliable, one of the most respected players, both on and off the court. The MVP runner-up, attaching quotes to things that we already kind of knew, but now we know this is a person who would not just make shit up. That's a person who means business. And with all of the players standing behind her, all of the players in the post-game press conference yesterday, Asia Wilson started her availability talking about how she stood behind Fee and what she said. I didn't see a single player not agreeing with her, and there were immediate reactions. So the league, and as Nakaya said, they just don't respect the players, frankly. And what we needed, I think, just to be sure about it, was having those quotes come up, having those stories come up, those testimonials. And we have Napheesa Collier, we have Neko Gumake, and we have other, Gabby. So we know we have always been like, yeah, the league doesn't respect them, but we can't really say that because, we're not sure. We are sure, and the league does not respect them, and the players are fed up.
Brian, I mean, those comments that came out from NECA, again, it was while the Storm were in New York. And big conversations. I mean, Brianna Stewart has also talked about how, the conversations were disappointing, and it was a missed opportunity, a big missed opportunity when the players were rolling about 40 plus deep in Indianapolis, and really not much was done. So like Roberta said, Brian, these are some players with high profile, but also there are not many blemishes, if any, on the integrity and the reputation of Collier and Agumake in particular. And when they speak on what was said, including Napheesa Collier saying something to the effect, Brian, that the reason players like Caitlin Clark can make $16 million of endorsements outside of their 75K-ish rookie salary is because of the WNBA. She alluded to players should be thankful and even get down on their knees and thank her for bringing in the new broadcast deal. I mean, these are inflammatory remarks. These are conversations that Napheesa is recounting that she had with the commissioner. And I don't know, the use of words and terminology here really does speak to, from what Fee is saying, a league that doesn't seem close to meeting the players where they're at in any way, shape, or form, because the sentiment seems like, again, the players should be thankful for what they have and not push for more.
Yeah, I feel like what happens a lot in any sort of CBA negotiation, especially in sports, is that the bosses think the labor is stupid. And it's, you guys, like Roberta was saying, Kathy telling Stanford graduate Neko Gumake, you don't know numbers, you don't know math. And it's like, it's that. It's also the implication that the players wouldn't have amounted to much if not for the platform that that both leagues, the WNBA and the parent league, have given them. And it really sort of like flies counter to what we actually see, because for so many years we've talked about, okay, how can the league sort of expand its footprint? How can they do this? How can the league's television partner get the players the platform that they've been grinding to build? Like, we've seen so many players via the college ranks, independently, whatever, they're able to really sort of create that buzz and appeal to the fan base. And then those fan bases really sort of follow along in the professional ranks. And a lot of it, the league, I think to their credit, has started to pick up on it in the past couple of years. But beforehand, it was just really all player led. So I think hearing that really took me back a bit. And I think also something that's really important, especially in the likelihood we're going to be in a lockout or extended work stoppage for some sort, the players are really sort of unified in a way that I think in the past hasn't been the case. I remember around the time NECA was in New York, I asked Stewie, what was it like in previous CBA negotiations? And she said something to the effect of only 30 players total in the league voted on a CBA. And
Yep.
now there's a lot more engagement, a lot more involvement. There's a lot more knowledge and information available to players. So it's not going to be a situation where only a few people know, and then you get the email, vote for the contract, and then you just sort of like ignore it.
Right.
Now everyone's dialed in, everyone's reading the information. There's a lot more eyes on the league, a lot more reporting on the league, which I think really goes hand in hand in this moment right now. Because before, you could really sort of like be funny with the numbers, tell them, oh, we ain't got it. Now you turn on, you open the news, you open awful announcing, you see the WNBA has a new TV deal with the NBC offshoot Versant, getting broadcast money that way. We know next year the league is getting at least $200 million a year from their television contracts.
Right.
$250 million expansion fees, the capital raise, all of these things that have come into the league post 2022, once the sort of like COVID restrictions ended and we started seeing the money trickle in. All of that has been gradually reported on. We've seen it, we start to see it. So there really isn't a situation where I think the league can cry poor, because every league does this. Even the NFL does this. We're like, oh,
the NBA did this in the last CBA negotiation with the men's players.
They do it all the time. It's, oh, we ain't got it. We're all losing $150 million a year. I didn't know this was going to be so expensive. We need a hard job. We need all of that nonsense that they sort of like put forth. And I think it's a situation in a W where it's pretty unique in that I feel like maybe it's just my algorithm sort of feeding me what I want to see, but it really does feel like there's a groundswell of support for labor in this moment. Because usually, Erica, we've seen it in hockey, we've seen it in basketball, every sort of like professional sport. It's always, y'all should be thankful for this bit that you got. And I feel like we're not getting that in the WNBA, at least not that I've seen so far. It feels like it's more, the players, you guys should get everything that you deserve. And I feel like that part is unique. And I feel like that part, especially the gnarlier it gets, because it's going to get gnarly. Because
I think gnarly is the baseline right now, given what Napheesa said. But I want to come to a few things. One is that Cathy Engelbert has responded. And especially during the collective bargaining agreement period, it has been difficult, I can attest, to getting a statement from the league. But she did respond pretty swiftly, saying, quote, I have the utmost respect for Napheesa Collier and for all the players in the WNBA. She goes on to say that they've worked tirelessly transforming the league, sees a bright future for the players and the league, including collaborating on how we can continue to elevate the game. Then she goes on to say, quote, I am disheartened by how Napheesa characterized our conversations and league leadership. But even when our perspectives differ, my commitment to the players and to this work will not waver. I think that the things that Napheesa Collier laid out, the way that she laid it out, the league absolutely, and specifically Cathy Engelbert, probably needed to make a statement. I don't know that statement really did much. I think a lot of people are wondering and reading into the language. One thing that the commissioner did not say in that statement was that the comments as Napheesa Collier laid them out were false.
Yep. That's why I got the notebook here, because she did not deny the comments. And we can, one thing that makes me absolutely trust that Napheesa Collier is not making stuff up is that that's the kind of thing that if you're lying, you can be sued for really badly. And the way that the commissioner replied, she just said, "I am sorry, we're gonna agree to disagree," basically, and she just
Right.
yeah, it
I'm
was
sorry if what I said offended you vibes.
exactly. I'm sorry that you feel offended. It's the kind of thing that, and I want to go back to a comment that Angelica made, the Calca, the audacity, and it's the fact that she said that players should be on their knees thanking her for the deal, a league that's
That's so
majoritarily
loaded.
of Black players. The lack of awareness, because I don't want to believe that the commissioner is, the R word. So the lack of awareness to say that to women, to Black and queer women,
Or in a
have
professional setting.
you have to be so so displaced from reality. You have to say, I love that Napheesa Collier said, Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, and Angel Reese. She was like, all of you big fans, let's bring the Avengers here and all get together to let's look at the enemy in common, right? It reminds me of the Hunger Games and one of the last books, and they're like, don't forget who the real enemy is,
Right.
because there's so much in fighting that you forget where you can actually target in order to make a difference. So I think that Napheesa Collier was so smart about it. It was not she didn't just like got up there and like, you know what, I'm gonna blow it up. No, it was so carefully thought and tailored. She did an amazing job, and just like Brian was saying, in terms of labor dispute, in terms of just knowing how it works, because it seems like it's clear for the players that being respectful, being political, being being the good neighbor is not going to work. It's going to benefit them because the league is going to continue lowballing them. And honestly, Kathy I don't think she's going to go until the CBA signed, because the board of governors, she works really well for the board of governors and the NBA's interests. She's on their side. She is going to take the heat. They're going to make her take the heat. So that's the thing. There is one side that Kathy is working really well for, and that's the side that holds the purse.
And that's interesting. I want to get into that a little bit more, but there was another statement. I received this. I was at A10 Media Day all day, so I missed a lot of this doing interviews, which was like, oh man, there was a lot I missed. But Napheesa, this is a WNBPA statement. Napheesa Collier is an outstanding leader and officer of this union. When Fee speaks, people listen.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. The statement goes on to say, we are confident that her words today speak to the feelings and experiences of many, if not most or all of our members. More on that in a little bit. I'm going to continue on with the quote. The leaders of the league and its teams would benefit from listening to her powerful statement. The players know their value, even if the league does not. They are fighting for their legacy and the future of basketball. And among the players, present and past and present, I should say, that have spoken out, include Angel Reese has commented. We've heard from Alicia Clark. We've heard from, honestly, it goes on and on here. Paige Beckers has weighed in. Asia Wilson, after the Game 5 win, talked about it. And Napheesa Collier, in her statements, talked about not hearing from Engelbert directly after her injury and only hearing from someone at the number 2 area to not even ask about Fee and her well-being, but to combat the narrative that was coming after Napheesa Collier's injury and Cheryl Reese's Reeves explosion, which I thought we were going to talk more about today, but we really might just stick with what Fee and the commish said, especially because I got hockey things to do a little bit later. So we're going to have to come back as a group a little later on this. But another thing that Fee said is that, that outreach is an example of what she and other players have mentioned. And so one statement that I found really interesting outside of just the support again from current players is one from Elena Deladon. It's the care for the human part for me. I'm still not sure if Kathy knows I retired. Heard from everyone but her. Brian, when you have recently retired legends like first ballot Hall of Famers co-signing on the specific human element or lack thereof of the humanity in how apparently the commissioner communicates with players, I mean, is there any coming back from this? Horita was kind of leading us there, but is there any coming back from this? Even if this is a commissioner that seems to fuel or at minimum support the interests of the owners, specifically on the NBA side of things.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the WNBA leadership over time between like presidents, Val Ackerman, Lisa Borders, now Kathy. I don't think we've really had a moment where people just hate the boss in the way that they do Kathy right now. It feels
not openly anyway.
Yeah. I feel like before you'd be like, man, whatever to them. But now it's like, ugh, Kathy's around. So I feel like that's a unique aspect of it. And to the relationship part, there are two things that come to mind when I think of it. The first was the story I read last night in Sports Business Journal, where one of their sort of like unnamed sources was saying that it seems like Kathy, once the CBA is done, is probably out the door. And one of the things they mentioned in it was that she's not good at sort of like relationship building with people. And I think there was a specific quote that I can't remember right now, but something to the effect of she's not good at the sort of like one-to-one conversation part. And I feel like as a commissioner, your job really is to sort of like represent the league in the C-suite part, but also have enough of a rapport with people that your door is open so they can come in. Like right. When Sabrina said that, I could just ring up Adam Silver, I'm like, I mean, that's true for you because like he's not your boss, so the dynamic is different. But for Kathy, it feels as if she's failed to sort of have that connection with players.
Yeah,
and it makes
minimum.
It makes things more adversarial than it needs to be. And it's a situation where if you're doing your tour of the league, like you have to really just sort of like at least make sure that, hey, you show your face, you communicate, just go, hey, I'm here. Like, I don't really need anything right now, but just stopping to say hello. It's just like common courtesy kind of stuff. And the second part of what Elena said that I really wanted to stick to and sort of tie it to the CBA negotiations itself. I think, Erica, I think earlier in the year, I wrote in a newsletter that I was deeply, deeply ashamed of myself for not knowing that W players don't get retired, don't get pensions.
No, they do not. No.
Yeah, I was so
not anything.
And I was like, Jesus Christ. And to tie it to the PA statement about the legacy and future of basketball, I feel like that part right there is so valuable because if you dedicate so much of your life to this league, you think of the early players. I know in Unfinished Business, Spoon was saying, I took other jobs and I took less money because I wanted to make this specific thing work. Like the players have dedicated so much of their lives to this enterprise to really sort of get it to where it is through the dark days of ESPN blocking them out of the main channel in the 2000s and 2010s. Now all of these things have like come together and it's coalescing in this moment. So for PA leadership currently, they have so many different battles that they have to win. And one of those is really sort of securing that financial support for players. So that way, as they retire, as they move to family planning, as their kids come into league, as their kids go into other professional sports, they have that financial footing and support. So excuse me. So it's not a situation where they're fighting and scratching and clawing. Meanwhile, the parent league 1 is raking in hundreds of millions in expansion fees and everything else, and parent league 2, the big bosses, they're setting records with attendance and all this kind of jazz. At 76 billion from a TV deal, and it's we barely get half of a half of a half of a half, and they're like, be thankful for it. So it's you have everything coming together in this moment, and there are so many battles that they have to fight and win. And even before you get to like the revenue share split of it, which is the headline, that's probably going to be the biggest takeaway once this is all done. The other sort of like essentials, as far as like retirement benefits, financial planning, family support, all of those things, they all come together. And
they do. And it's something that in the documentary Shattered Glass that Brianna Stewart actually brought up. This was just before the official opt-out was, which would have happened around this time last year. But what Stewie said is exactly what you just said, Brian. Her focus for this new CBA, and she is an executive officer as well, was family benefits. She said they've made strides and it needs to be better. And she talked about thinking about retired players. There are no benefits for retired players. It's only recently that retired players were even acknowledged when they did come back to games. There would be times where we'd be sitting at games in the building at games, which is also wild because someone on IG was like, I bet you don't even watch games. I'm like, bro, I'm at the games. But anyway, like, what? Okay. you don't even watch the games. Okay, but it's happening right there. Anyway, I think it's wild. And no, I'm not playing solitaire. If you know, you know. Anyway, or whatever. What is wild to me is that, we would be at these games, not even 5 years ago, and you'd have retired players, sitting in the 5th, 6th, 10th row, so a little bit further back, but they're focusing attention on other celebrities, even other celebrities in women's sports, not highlighting the WNBA legends that were at the game. We've heard players, I've heard and had conversations with players that were not invited to all-star weekends that were happening in cities that either they were working in, even with professional basketball teams, or that they helped pioneer franchises for. And that is wild to me. And those are some of the things that, if you're coming into the league recently, we're seeing it be a lot better, but that's the bare minimum. Right? The bare minimum you can do is to honor and recognize when one of your former players, one of your founding players, comes to a Seattle Storm game, comes to a New York Liberty game. That's the bare minimum that you should be able to do. And players weren't even getting that respect just a few years ago. So I think the big question becomes, where do we go from here? Because I hear what you're saying, Huerta, and Kathy is the is the MNBA's person. That literally the NBA named her the first ever commissioner of the league, of the WNBA, and her direct report is Adam Silver. And so there's that connection. And I will say this, I think there's a lot of things that can and probably should be said about Kathy's leadership that are not the best, including everything that Napheesa Collier said and the fallout that will happen from it. But one thing that is undeniable, whether you like Kathy or not, is that she brought the league to a different level when it comes to the business. That's 100% a fact. What's also a fact, though, is what Brian was saying, Huerta, in that the legacy that she also seems to be leaving in this role is a little bit more of a divide between, in this case, the role of commissioner, and she's the only ever commissioner, so all the heat's on Kathy because she's been singled out by Satu, by now FIBA. So it's not people just talking about the league or the WNBA, but they're specifically talking about Kathy. It's giving what was that Senators vibes when they were calling out a very direct person. Loeffler, right? It's giving like
Oh yeah.
Loeffler vibes here. And I think you are missing a lot if you think that what the players are saying is just emotional. There is an emotion to it, because this is their livelihood. This is quite literally their bodies on the line. And
Yeah.
you would be grossly underestimating these individual players, but specifically the collective, if you are not seeing that this is a strategic move. And why shouldn't it be? When the NBA says we're losing money, for like Brian said earlier, that's strategic. It's strategic to say those things without providing the documentation. Oh, we don't share numbers, but we believe us, we're losing this much money. That's what leagues do all the time. That's strategic, and that is played out in the public all of the time. Adam Silver dropping all of these numbers about the WNBA, but providing zero context. That's strategic. And what you're seeing the players do is also strategic. So what wins out here? Is it that you want a commissioner that is going to be more player friendly, but do you sacrifice some business acumen, which Sandy, which Kathy does have, or do you side with kind of the brass, but then you alienate your players? I don't see how you alienate the players, and I don't know that the NBA specifically is going to be able to keep Kathy in this position long term, because they are losing the battle of public opinion. But more importantly, you have players now that are very clear on things that they do not like and appreciate. At this point, I'd be shocked if we do get an agreement on the CBA. The more we get closer to the 31st, Huerta, it seems almost inevitable that there will be a lockout.
Yeah, what we see today is a shift in the balance of public opinion. For a long time, people are like, "Oh, why do WNBA players want more money? Nobody watches them. No, they don't even play that well." That was the overwhelming majority that we saw in the sports landscape, because they were trying to cater to men, they were trying to cater to the NBA, the NFL, the MLB dudes who wanted to be watching the WNBA. What we see today is a drastic difference, shift in the balance. So the public opinion is on the players' side more than ever. And if you change the commissioner, the players are still going to be there and the quality of play is still going to be there. All you have to do is bring someone with similar credentials to Kathy Engelbert. You want someone who was the CEO of Deloitte? Okay, let's bring someone who was the CEO of PwC. Let's bring someone who was the CEO of another corporation. The business side is very logical. You can calculate things. You can follow a formula. The basketball, do you think there's anyone out there who can be an Asia Wilson? Do you think there's anyone out there who can be a Brianna Stewart, Napheesa Collier, and Alyssa Thomas? If the WNBA does not listen to the players, that's what they're going to lose, the product, what brings them money. If there is a lockout and there are no games, they are losing money from tickets, from sales. They are losing money from the TV deal that they signed. So
that they should be grateful, apparently.
So if the WNBA chooses to side with one person over the 144, which now is more or maybe less, it's not a smart decision, because let's say you go to a restaurant and you really like the food and the business owner is really good at it, but he's not a good cook. So you're gonna fire the cook and leave the business owner who can't cook. So that kind of like doesn't make sense for the NBA to side with the commissioner instead of the players. My opinion, and that was part of my capstone that I did about the WNBA CBA. On my suggestions, I put at the top of the list, provide players with a higher revenue share, and then it maximize the TV deal. And I specifically wrote the league should sign up to the players' agenda because the public opinion is on their side, and if they don't side with the players, they are not gonna. It's not going to have a good look, and they would lose money. So the league has been able to get away with misogyny, with racism, with all of those horrible things that they were able to get away with in the past years because players were not listened to. They didn't take players seriously because the WNBA, ESPN, they were catering to a public that has the male gaze. That narrative was
GAZE. I always like to.
Yeah,
Once I said that, and people were like, "Erica, the gaze," and I was like, "Yes,
No.
the gaze,
The gaze.
GAZE."
Yeah, so they were trying to sell the WNBA for the male gaze, and that was flying. That was flying. That was going, but now it's not anymore. Player like just I lost my train of thought
I'm
now
sorry.
with that,
I'm gonna type
because
it in the chat. The
No.
GAZE people.
yeah,
okay, the
so
gaze.
while the WNBA and ESPN were appealing to the male gaze and trying to sell the WNBA as that product that has to be appealing in a certain way, and they don't really make a lot of money, so we're gonna lose money if we keep investing. That's not flying anymore. That is long gone. The public opinion is on the player side, and if the WNBA does not listen to the players, if the WNBA does not give the players what they want, they're not gonna have players, and if there are no players, there is no WNBA.
Yeah,
And
go ahead.
Gabby Williams has shown time and time again that there are other options. And now Napheesa Collier and Brianna Stewart have also provided another option. So the WNBA should be terrified right now.
I mean, it's really going to be interesting. I was just about to say this. I was like, the reason I put this up here is I know where Angelica is coming from. So it was definitely sarcasm. I was going to come back. I was like, wait, I know this person's and how they think. Just let's be clear. But anyway, so this is going to be interesting. And just real quick as we wrap this up, and then Brian, I'm going to come to you for something that Roberta mentioned. Some people refer to his hair, but now we know that Clanis no longer employed. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'll get your thoughts on the Dallas position. But first, I just want to say this, and this is going to be more food for thought. We're not going to get into it on this episode, but who is the right mix of business and being able to have that more human personal touch? Well, if you go and watch Shattered Glass or read my write-up on Shattered Glass from cbssports.com, there's one candidate that may emerge, and that is the one and only Nneka Ogwumike, who has already stated that perhaps being a commissioner in the future, or the commissioner, could be something of interest. But as far as we know, Roberta, she is still planning to return, not quite retired. I don't know if you could be player commissioner. That might be a lot. But if someone could do it, I do believe Nneka could do it. But we'll have to come back to that, see if she throws her hat in the ring. But Brian, again, Roberta mentioned some things, and we're going to keep up with this story as it evolves. But one of the things that came on the heels of this, Dallas was like, oh, the league is on fire. Let's announce now that we're getting rid of our coach. And this is interesting because there was a lot of backlash. There had been reports that both Dallas and Chicago would retain their coaches, their head coaches, in the wake of the news that both Noelle Quinn and Sandy Brondello's contracts had not been extended. What do you think about this move for Dallas? Was it the right move? And do you think that any of the public response to the reporting maybe had Dallas walk back retaining Chris?
Possibly. And I feel like It's tough for like a first year coach to really sort of like get their bearings and sort of like try to sort of learn the ropes and get their bearings at the same time, because for Dallas this year they walked in with certain expectations. Then there were some injuries, there was a little bit of a revolt, and trades happened. So everything really sort of like bottomed out gradually. Even though we saw Paige play great, we saw Zaya James play great, Louisa was good as well too. So there's talent on the team, but if it really felt as if Chris never really got his footing. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's for rookie coaches, like it takes a while to get good at the job. But I think the combination of the sort of like context of the WNBA right now, in the sense of veteran coaches and veteran coaches who played in the league being out of jobs, while a neophyte who's been an assistant for this whole time, he's still there. I feel like that possibly contributed to Chris's ouster, along with the openings of coaches that are out there either in the college ranks or in the professional ranks now. And then also, I think for Dallas, I feel like the Wings are a pretty unstable organization, because this is going to be their third head coach in 3 years. So they got so LT was it was Vicky. Vicky was gone. LT was gone. Now Chris is gone. Who's going to be the next head coach there? And will you have enough time to actually build a program properly? They have as far as like infrastructure, I think they're pretty solid. Their page is looking amazing. They have another high lottery pick. It could possibly go up to number one. They have a new facility
Mhm.
coming online. They have a new arena coming in 27. So the foundation is there for Dallas. I guess my question is, I wonder, is Wings management patient enough to find a coach that's gonna like actually that they'll trust fully and is the right fit, and can also really have time to implement their vision as best as possible? I have my
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, my big question, and I actually want to come to Harwitha about this, because my question is there a coach that has the experience that Dallas needs that is going to want to
Mhm.
go to the organization? Because I've already heard people saying Sandy Brondello should go to Dallas. I wonder if people think Noelle Quinn should go to Dallas. So, Harwitha, I'm going to ask you, because I can tell you what my answer is, especially for Sandy, is absolutely not.
Oh,
Sandy,
that
and y'all already know. I said, Sandy, don't go to Seattle. And Seattle is if the other choice is Dallas, and then I'm like, Sandy, go to Seattle.
okay. I left a comment in our private chat here, and my question for you, Erica, was: do you think that Dallas change of pace and firing their coach was motivated by Sandy Brondello being available?
I mean, if I'm Dallas, I go after Sandy. If I'm Sandy, I stay away from Dallas.
I think that if Dallas presents Sandy with a really solid project and give her the keys to doing everything, if Kurt Miller is like, whoever you want, you're going to get, I think that she could be exactly what Dallas needs to finally get to that level. It is a team that has, I think that the difference is that Dallas is more in a true rebuild mode, unlike the Storm. So maybe for Sandy, having that hand in the first, being able to coach Paige Beckers from early on, maybe that could be something that would look good for her if she brings in the right people to complement Paige, Arike. That I could see Sandy Brondello being a good fit, but to be honest, I'm just not sure if it would be too much having Kurt and Sandy working together, because I feel like they both have similar ways of working, and Kurt doesn't seem like the kind of person who really is gonna be like, yes, ma'am. So I think that could be something that wouldn't work, but I think that Sandy to Dallas, if Kurt Miller brings the right pieces, could be something.
Would you tell Noelle Quinn to take the Dallas job?
Uh, I don't think that she could do the work that Sandy could do. I think that's
Would
the
you
difference.
tell Noelle Quinn to take the job?
No,
So why?
because like I said, it's not just about, in this case, it's not just about the organization. It's about what can be done with that. I'm thinking about the Dallas Wings' future, getting to a championship at some point, right?
Do
And
you
that's,
think Dallas, even with Sandy Brondello, is in a championship within
like I
5 to
said,
7 years?
if they have the right piece, isn't that what she did in New York? They brought the right pieces, and they brought people, and they brought Sandy.
Do you think
So
Dallas?
that's not what I'm saying.
Here's
Okay,
the thing. I don't trust the Dallas organization. Period. Period. I like Kurt Miller, and I hope for his sake that I am 100% wrong. The Dallas organization has consistently dropped the ball when it comes to being able to find themselves in the contender status. Arike is the one that stuck it out the most. Skylar Diggins has left. Alicia Gray, Teresa Plaisance. We can go back to Liz Cambage. They done fumbled a lot. They've squandered high picks. I talk about, you have the second round pick, you play the second round pick. Dallas has squandered multiple picks, multiple high picks that and this is what's wild to me about Dallas, Brian, is that they will make moves, whether it's through trades or whatnot, to get good picks. And yet, when is the last time the Wings / Tulsa was competitive? It's when the team was still Tulsa.
Yeah.
Like they just don't seem like a squad or like an organization that can get it together. And all of the things that we're talking about from a Kathy perspective, how do I say this? People around the league, players, have been raising red flags about Dallas. And what Dallas has done is they shuffle out players, they change head coaches, but not enough change is happening in the front office for me to have any confidence and faith that this is an organization that is ready to look at its inherent flaws and make the accurate changes to be a competitor, because I don't think players want to be there. So for Noelle Quinn, that job seems better suited for Quinn than Sandy Brondello. Because if I'm Sandy Brondello, why would I go from bringing the first title to an original franchise in the New York Liberty, who were able to curate their 2020 first round pick a la Sabrina Ionescu and then build around her in free agency, to then go to a project? I'm talking, you gotta wash the Legos before you even can find out what you're supposed to build. I have no idea what's going on in Dallas. I do have faith in Kurt Miller. I like him more as an executive, and I think his time as a coach, he was more well suited to be an executive. I don't know that I agree that he and Sandy would butt heads. I think actually Sandy is able to I think she did that with Jonathan Kolb. But for me, Brian, this just is not a stable organization. And when you have the pedigree that Sandy Brondello has, to me, unless she absolutely wants to go to Dallas for some reason, I don't see why you take this job.
Yeah, like, because I think in Sandy's context, she's been competing for playoffs and championships for a solid decade now. So ever since she took on the head job with Phoenix in 2014, it's been playoffs, championship, finals, championship, da da da. So it would be it'd be like a complete culture shift for her and her staff to go from we're competing for a number one seed in a championship to we are barely trying to get to at least 5 games under 500. Like she did it with the Liberty in 2022, but the context there was different because they came off a playoff appearance the year before. So there was some foundation there already.
Right.
I would just need a little bit of tweaking. For Dallas, like you said, it's such an overhaul, and it's such a, you would need to sort of like completely revamped the organization from Greg Bibb on down as far as what they prioritize talent evaluation, because they've had great players come in. I think even this year, Carla Light, who on the Valkyries was a Dallas Wings draft pick that they left unprotected in the expansion draft, which Kurt ran. So it's like, even now the talent evaluation isn't hitting like that. And then now you have all the conversations about lack of infrastructure over the years. That's really shown through in Dallas because they don't have their own space. They're sharing the space, all these kind of things. So now it's so much. You almost have to take it, like completely open up the hood and sort of like rewire everything in there. And and I guess the big question that Erica, you mentioned her, and I forgot about her. You wonder, what do you do with Arike Ogunbowale at this point? Because Arike is talented, but one playoff appearance in 6 seasons there in Dallas, because she was, I think, 2019, right? So 2019. So like one playoff appearance for like 6 or 7 seasons, and Arike, for as talented as she is, the offense around her is so geared towards Arike. Here's the ball. Do something, cook, that kind of thing. So it's tough to really sort of like build a boat with that, in my opinion. So it's okay, how do you make the most of that? Can a new head coach get that for her? Can a new head coach get her to a place where you're at 20 points a game on like 47% shooting? If you can, great, we'd love to have you here. But if you can't, it's okay, what's out there for me? What can I find? But that's going to be really hard, especially with,
it's going to be tough.
Yeah, especially with like the wildness of the new CBA and whatever it's going to look like coming up next year. So it's going to be a lot of juggling. And if you're a veteran coach who's trying to compete for a playoff spot, do you really want to go into a rebuild with so much unsurety on the other side of the road waiting for you? I think I would pass.
Yeah, I just don't see that being a good fit for Sandy. I think from what Roberta said, probably not the best fit for Noelle Quinn either, for some of the same reasons, but then also like that roster and the malleability there, or maybe that's why it's not necessarily a good situation for Quinn. I wonder if maybe having a set roster where you don't have to think too much, it's very clear who's getting in the game, because rotations for both of those women honestly have been a lot of things that people called into question. But I think that moving on here though, because we're going to get into these conversations as they develop, we just don't know. But we can't leave, even though I do have to leave soon, but we can't leave without talking about the WNBA Finals. Just like we all drew it up, Las Vegas versus Phoenix. I will say my early predictions, I did say Vegas. Now, I did not always stick with that early prediction. Preseason prediction, CBSSports.com. I said Vegas was going to the final. The team that I had them play, don't worry about it. But I did have them going, and then I was like, "Ooh, girl, that pick looks terrible." And then they went on a 16-game winning streak to end the regular season. I was like, "Okay, wait a minute, maybe it's got some legs." But let's start with you, Roberta. What are you most excited about when it comes to this matchup? And do you have at this time the team that you're taking, and how many games do you think it will take them to win?
Oh my God. I have a feeling it's going to be a 7-game series.
7 games for the first time. Let's go.
I think it's going to be a 7-game series. And I've been going back and forth between the Aces and the Mercury, but if I have to pick someone at this time, at this minute, at this second, I would say the Mercury.
Ooh,
I think
Mercury. Okay.
Mercury in 7.
Mercury in 7.
I know that Kalia Copper told us not to pick them, but I'm picking the Mercury because nobody picked them and then they won. So I'm going to start by picking them. I also think that the Mercury has more stability. I think that the Aces were able to pull that big run towards the end of the season, and they are, they struggled a lot against an Indiana Fever that they shouldn't have struggled against. They shouldn't have struggled with. All the respect to Indiana, everyone got hurt there. But I think that Indiana should not, the Aces should not have had that much trouble to beat them. And that makes me believe that against healthy and really good Phoenix Mercury, they're going to struggle a little more. Of course, once you get playoff mode, Chelsea Gray, that makes it very, and MVP Asia Wilson and Superwoman Jackie Young, you don't really get to, it's very hard to beat that team.
Yeah.
But being logical and just thinking about the individual pieces and how both teams have been going, I would say Mercury in 7.
Mercury in 7. All right, Brian, what are you locking in as of right now?
I'm pretty solid in my pick for Merc in 5. I think Phoenix, they've impressed me so much, and they've really been able to really punish New York and Minnesota with the inverted pick and rolls. Like Nate, we talked earlier about coaches of like finding their footing in year 2. Nate has really found his footing this year, and he's really been able to get the absolute most out of his bench. He keeps the short rotation, but Sammy's excellent. Westbeld was critical in game 2 to tie that series. So you see the confidence really sort of build out of that bench. And I think especially what's going to matter a lot in this series is rebounding. I left game 5 last night so disappointed in Las Vegas. Like, you won, but it takes overtime to beat a team that's down to like 6 people. And
Mitchell didn't finish the game. No Boston.
Yeah.
And you forced 21 turnovers, yet you get out rebounded by 19 in your own gym. And then I looked at the playoff numbers a little while ago. I think they're in like the bottom 3 for rebounding in the playoffs. And if you don't rebound, you don't win.
Hello, New York.
Hello, Seattle. Yeah. Yeah, like if you don't rebound against Phoenix, because AT is going to be on that glass. Satu's going to be on that glass. Westbelt's going to be on that glass.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be really aggressive.
That's a good point. Yeah. That's a really good point.
And also, I worry a lot that Vegas as perimeter players are going to struggle, because really in that series, it was just like overtime excluded. It was loud there with some of the magnet threes that they hit, but they had a hard time dealing with Kelsey Mitchell. Skylar too gave them a lot of trouble. And I think especially for a player who really gets to the rim in a way that Kalia Copper does, that's going to create so much trouble for Jack. Because who's Jackie? Jackie's going to have so much to deal with. Either you give Jackie Ka, and then someone else has to get Satu, because I don't trust Melissa Smith in this context, and I don't think Becky does either, because it wasn't Alyssa out there late in the game. It was super small lineup and Pancake Mama Meg Gustafson in the game. So I don't
and Becky talked about that post game and how much she can bring physicality wise and absorb that physicality while also contributing offensively. I promise she didn't say Kia Stokes, but I sure thought it. I'm just saying, she didn't say it, but I sure thought it. For me, and we talked about this on the We Need to Talk Now podcast, so go check that out. But I keep going back and forth, but there's something in my brain as I keep thinking about this game that is saying Aces in 6.
All right, I'm posting it.
I think that all of what Brian said is valid, and I reserve the right, after we start seeing some of the statistical breakdowns in this series, to change my mind. But I just think that there is so much value in being a veteran team, especially if you've had a deep playoff run, let alone championship runs together. All of the things that Brian said are absolutely true, not to mention that they absolutely crapped the bed early in the season. So this is not a consistent team. And again, people on social media are funny because I've talked about this before. And the thing that I said going into the semifinals previews over at CBS Sports is the Aces don't need a 17 game winning streak to win a championship. Clearly, there's not that many games left in the season. But why am I saying that? They were able to refine their game to go on a 17 game winning streak. Now, there's a part of me that wonders, did they tap out any reserves and are they fatigued? Is that a part of what we're seeing from Vegas? Or is it that they just lost sight of the goalpost a little bit? They got a little more physical. You could make an argument looking at their strength of schedule towards the back end, and maybe they just figured things out at the right time. But I just believe that this is going to be a very physical game. I feel like a la Alyssa Thomas on those Connecticut teams, that if the Phoenix Mercury have their way, they're going to want to keep this a low scoring affair, but Vegas can run the score up. If we see high gaudy scores, that's likely going to favor Vegas. If we see this be a knockdown drag out, that's likely going to favor Phoenix. And I think we're going to see both. If you're asking me right now before the series starts, something's telling me my auntie vibes are going off, and it's Vegas in 6. So I'm going to lean into that, given that we at least don't have any stats to go off of in this series. But that's what makes it fun. I will be joining.
Yep.
We need to talk now on our immediate reaction podcasts. And of course, we here at Black Rosie Media will have podcasts as well. We'll alternate between Tempestagi Talk and Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, both hosted by Black Rosie Media, because neither the New York Liberty nor the Seattle Storm are playing in the finals. Imagine the year when they're both in the finals together.
Oh my God.
Like, welcome to Gotta Get Up, Tempestagi Talk, a podcast brought to you by
but that will only happen when Sandy's the Storm's coach. So
wow. I mean, again, if the other option is Dallas, Sandy, you better come to the Emerald City. That's all
I'm just happy I haven't been kicked out today.
I mean, listen, Dallas did you a solid, because there's no way. I don't know. I don't love these options for Sandy, but
Not many out there.
Who knows? I mean, but then, if Chicago has a vacancy, then I'll say the same thing. Well, now if the only other two options are Dallas or Seattle, Sandy, pick somebody else, because I don't like how they did Teaspoon, and I'm not sure. That's a whole nother conversation. But as far as we know, that job is not vacant, so we'll get there when we get there. But for Brian Florentin from Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, my co-host over there, and of course for Joeta F. Rodriguez, my co-host over at Tempestagi Talk, where we are keeping a local eye on the Seattle Storm. My name is Erica L. Ayala, the founder or head Black Rosie in charge here. Thank you to my awesome team as I'm running around doing a million things. Y'all, I was in Pittsburgh yesterday around this time, so it's wild. I'm back in Seattle, about to go to a hockey game, but thank y'all for sticking with us. We had Winsome come through again. I did see Damien. He's over here talking about Noel Quinn to New York. We'll see, Damien. Angelica hopped on. Kiyoka, we're so glad that you were able to come back. Thank you so much for joining us again. I saw Nakayas came through. Estefano, thank you so much. Daniel always comes and says hi. We appreciate y'all so much, and we will catch you on the next live stream. Until then, peace out, everybody.